Tonight, the powerful U.S. senator and his wife indicted on federal bribery charges. Senator Bob Menendez, the New Jersey Democrat, and his wife Nadine accused of accepting gold bars, stacks of cash found hidden in Menendez's jackets, mortgage payments, and a Mercedes in exchange for favors for three businessmen, and Menendez using his influence to help a foreign power. The growing calls for him to resign, even in his own party. Also tonight, Tropical Storm Ophelia taking aim, the path from North Carolina up the East Coast. The United Auto Workers expanding their strike across 20 states, how it could impact you if you need a car repair. And the invitation to President Biden, will he join the picket line? New images of the surge at the border. We're inside a shelter talking to migrants, why they say they converged on one small Texas town. News on that F-35 fighter jet that went missing. The 911 call after the pilot ejected and landed in a backyard. You'll hear what he and the stunned homeowner told the dispatcher. The deadly bus crash involving a high school band, the band director and a retired teacher killed. The investigation. And Ukraine's stolen children, one mother's 3,000-mile journey to bring her son home.
This is NBC Nightly News with Lester Holt.
Good evening and welcome. A high-ranking Democratic U.S. senator who is no stranger to facing down federal prosecution is proclaiming his innocence against serious new charges tonight. New Jersey Senator Bob Menendez and his wife Nadine indicted by a federal grand jury in New York, accused in a sweeping bribery scheme. According to the indictment, the couple accepted hundreds of thousands of dollars of bribes in the form of cash, gold, luxury cars, and mortgage payments meant to secure the senator's power and influence for the benefit of three New Jersey businessmen and the government of Egypt. Menendez prevailed in a separate 2015 corruption indictment when the government dropped its case. Responding to the new indictment, Menendez in a statement said today prosecutors have misrepresented the normal work of a congressional office. Our NBC News Chief Justice contributor Jonathan Dienst has details.
A stunning corruption indictment tonight against Senator Bob Menendez. Prosecutors laying out what they say was a wide-ranging bribery scheme by the New Jersey Democrat, saying he and his wife accepted gold bars, piles of cash, and a Mercedes-Benz, all in an illegal effort to help three businessmen and Egyptian officials.
The senator and his wife accepted hundreds of thousands of dollars of bribes in exchange for Senator Menendez using his power and influence to protect and to enrich those businessmen and to benefit the government of Egypt.
One of those businessmen, Fred Davies, is an admitted fraudster who allegedly paid Menendez and his wife with these gold bars. After getting the gold, the indictment says Menendez went online to search how much is 1 kilo of gold worth.
These 3 kilograms together are worth approximately $150,000.
During a search of Menendez's home, prosecutors say they found $480,000 in cash, including these envelopes stuffed into one of his suits, more hidden in a safe and in closets. According to the indictment, Senator Menendez also abused his powerful position as chairman of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee.
Senator Menendez allegedly provided sensitive, non-public U.S. government information to Egyptian officials.
Senator Menendez and his wife both deny wrongdoing, saying forces behind the scenes are trying to silence him with false claims. There's been an active smear campaign of anonymous sources. The excesses of these prosecutors is apparent. They have misrepresented the normal work of a congressional office, attacked my wife for the long-standing friendships she had before she and I even met. While many Democrats are remaining silent, tonight, New Jersey's governor saying the allegations are deeply disturbing and calling on Menendez to immediately resign.
And Jonathan joining me in the studio. Menendez is stepping down his position as chair of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee.
That's right, Lester. And all the defendants are expected to appear in court Wednesday, where they're expected to plead not guilty. This is the second time in a decade Menendez has faced corruption charges. Last time it ended in a hung jury, and the charges, Lester, were then dropped.
Jonathan Dienst, thank you very much. Tropical storm Ophelia is taking aim, expected to bring drenching rains and potential flooding this weekend. Bill Cairns is tracking it for us. Bill, what's the latest?
Good evening, Lester. Ophelia is trying to be a memorable storm, increasing in intensity more than expected today, almost at hurricane strength. We're going to take this into North Carolina as we go throughout the overnight hours. We have tropical storm warnings that extend all the way from the Wilmington area back up through southern portions of Maryland and Delaware. It'll weaken rapidly during the day on Saturday, but still bring gusty winds and that flood threat all the way through southern portions of Virginia. The biggest concern is storm surge, 2 to 4 feet from the Virginia beach all the way down to Emerald Isle. But that 4 to 6 foot surge near high tide tonight, very problematic for the Albemarle and Pamlico Sounds. And as far as rainfall goes, as much as 7 inches of rain in North Carolina and up to 4 inches over the entire weekend in areas of the Northeast.
All right, Bill Cairns. Let's turn to the deepening impact of the UAW strike. The union expanding the walkout across the country with President Biden about to get involved. Jesse Kirsch is in Pontiac, Michigan. Jesse, the president is headed there.
Lester, President Biden saying he will join one of these UAW picket lines in Michigan on Tuesday, just hours before former President Donald Trump's expected speech to union workers in this state. Meanwhile, the potential consequences of this strike are growing.
Tonight, the United Auto Workers' historic strike now stretching coast to coast.
Reinforcements are coming.
The union says it's made real progress, but just with Ford. So it's following through on its threat, telling General Motors and Stellantis workers to strike at all parts distribution centers in 20 states, from New York to North Carolina, Texas, Colorado, and California.
Stellantis and GM in particular are going to need some serious pushing.
Among those walking off the job today, Eric Shorter. He says he was also part of a 40-day strike against GM in 2019, with his family feeling that financial strain.
Are you ready to go 40 days again?
Yes, sir. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Why?
Yes. Because we deserve a fair, reasonable wage.
But that fight for higher pay could soon hit Americans far from the picket line.
This will be days that we will feel the impact and that consumers will feel the impact.
Scott Kunis helps run more than 40 Midwest dealerships. He says they've stocked up on high-demand parts like brake pads, but warns others, like new engines, could be harder to find with parts distribution centers on strike.
If the union really wanted to put more pressure directly on the companies, was this the best next step for the union?
This tactic seems to put more pressure on the dealers and consumers than the company.
In a statement, General Motors accusing union leadership of manipulating the bargaining process for their own personal agendas. Stellantis writing, "We question whether the union's leadership has ever had an interest in reaching an agreement in a timely manner." But the union says it's closer to a deal with Ford, highlighting the company's offers on issues including cost of living adjustments and the right to strike over plant closures. Tonight, Ford says there's more work to do. Jesse Kirsch, NBC News, Pontiac, Michigan.
Tonight, no let-up in the latest surge of migrants illegally crossing the southern border. Officials telling NBC News most migrants are now being released into the U.S. Tom Yamas spoke with some of them in Eagle Pass, Texas.
From early this morning through the afternoon, migrants still pouring into Eagle Pass, Texas.
This group right here just crossed the Rio Grande. ¿De cuánto tiempo viajando? They say they've been traveling for a month and 3 days.
Packing freight trains, riding anywhere they can. This week, they've come by the tens of thousands. This man saying he's too weak to continue. He needs water. Part of a surge of migrants that took border towns and Homeland Security by surprise. In just the last 24 hours, there were 8,200 illegal crossings over the southern border, 2,600 in Eagle Pass alone.
How many of you guys rode the train? ¿Cuántos de ustedes estaban en el tren? Everybody rode the train. The train was full. The train estaba lleno de inmigrantes. 1,000 people. The trains were full, they tell me.
Enrique Barrios was one of them. He tells me you had to hold on tight because if you fall, you die.
You heard rumors that they were letting you in from here. Tú oíste rumores que te iban a dejar entrar por aquí.
This man tells me he tried following the new rules, using the Biden administration's app, CBP One, to apply for asylum, but the app crashed.
40% of the time it works.
This, as NBC News has learned, most migrants who have crossed illegally since those new rules were put into effect in May have been processed, then released into the U.S., not deported. The Border Patrol Union says just in September, more than 100,000 migrants have been released into the U.S. The Biden administration sending 800 military personnel to help process new arrivals, but local leaders say they need a different type of assistance.
That doesn't help. They need to surge immigration judges, and people need to get their cases heard in days, not years.
And Tom joins us now. Tom, tell us about this key meeting on the border this weekend.
Lester, tomorrow the DHS Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas will meet with the president of Honduras here on the border to discuss, quote, reducing irregular migration and highlighting lawful pathways as an alternative to smugglers. Lester, just this week alone, at least 40,000 migrants have crossed illegally.
All right, Tom Yamas, thank you. We're learning more about that bus that crashed northwest of New York City, killing 2 people and injuring dozens of students heading to band camp. Here's Emily Aketa.
Tonight, new details on the harrowing moments before a bus packed with band students went careening off the roadway.
I heard the bus, start to roll over the hill. And then I heard everyone start screaming.
Officials say the crash landed virtually everyone in the hospital.
The kid next to me was covered in blood.
Farmingdale High School's beloved band director, Gina Pelletieri, died, along with her close friend, 77-year-old Beatrice Ferrari. Her daughter says the retired teacher chaperoned the trip for 3 decades.
My mom's impact on so many people throughout her time as a teacher and just her time in the community was profound. And the reason I'm talking tonight is to honor that.
Among the seriously injured, Natalie and Ashley Betts. Their mom sharing Natalie found her sister Ashley and screamed for help to get her out from under the bus. The freshman suffering a broken clavicle, jaw, ribs, and partially collapsed lung.
Bus rollover eastbound.
The now damaged bus moved to nearby police barracks in Orange County, New York, as federal investigators zero in on a faulty front tire.
When a steering tire blows, when you're traveling at a high rate of speed with a vehicle that is the mass of a bus, it can be difficult to steer.
And police say 5 students are still in critical condition as a memorial outside of the school here continues to grow. Lester?
Emily Aketa, thank you. Now to the cost of climate change hitting home. California is considering new rules that would allow insurance companies to consider climate risk in their policies. As Miguel Almaguer reports, it could send premiums soaring.
Home to some of the nation's most coveted real estate, tonight the cost of insuring a home in California could soon dramatically change. For the first time, the state's insurance commissioner is moving to let insurance companies factor in future climate risks when setting new policy prices.
We are truly living in unprecedented times.
After decades of disaster, Insurance Commissioner Ricardo Laura says the move is aimed at keeping insurance companies from fleeing the state and homeowners insured.
There's no doubt that California is at an insurance crossroads. Making insurance more available is becoming critical for our entire economy.
But critics say allowing insurance companies to spike premiums based on the threat of floods or wildfires in the future is a disaster of its own.
The insurance companies are using climate change as an excuse to make changes in rules that have saved Californians, literally, not exaggerating, hundreds of billions of dollars in the last 35 years.
With a new study projecting more than 39 million Americans could soon face skyrocketing insurance premiums, some insurers have already walked away from hurricane and flooding-prone states like Florida and Louisiana. In high-risk areas of California, many are already priced out.
Just received the bill, and it's double what it was last year.
In allowing insurance companies to look ahead when setting rates, the state will also require those same companies insure more homeowners who live in areas of high risk.
Tonight, the fight to keep Californians insured, if they can afford it. Miguel Almaguer, NBC News, Los Angeles.
In 60 seconds, the words of the pilot who ejected from that F-35 jet that crashed in South Carolina. The 911 audio after he came down in a backyard just released. 911 audio just released reveals stunning new details about the minutes after the pilot ejected from that F-35 fighter jet. The pilot heard on the phone after landing in a backyard. Here's Blaine Alexander.
as a $100 million military fighter jet tore unmanned through the South Carolina sky. Tonight, for the first time, we're hearing from its pilot in a 911 call moments after he parachuted to safety.
We had a military jet crash. I'm the pilot. We need to get rescue rolling.
The 47-year-old pilot was flying an F-35 Sunday, but had to eject, landing in the backyard of a North Charleston home where a stunned homeowner called 911.
I guess we got a pilot at our house, and he says he got ejected. So he ejected from the plane. So we just see if we could get some ambulance, please.
I'm sorry, what happened?
We got a pilot in the house, and I guess he landed in my backyard.
The pilot describes his harrowing escape, saying, incredibly, his only injury is back pain.
How far did he fall?
I was at 2,000 feet.
And what caused the fall?
An aircraft failure.
He urgently tells the dispatcher the plane is likely going down.
I'm not sure where the airplane is. It would have crash landed somewhere. I ejected.
I understand, sir.
It was ultimately found some 80 miles away after crashing into a field. Officials have not said what went wrong, but just this week, the Government Accountability Office released a report on the F-35 program, saying the fleet's mission-capable rate was about 55%, consistently failing to meet performance goals. It comes after this stunning crash landing last December in Texas, where an F-35 pilot had to eject on the runway. And officials say the investigation into this latest crash will take several months. Lester.
All right, Blaine Alexander, thank you. When we come back, the question on the rise in Maui, and it's a tough one. Is it even worth rebuilding? The climate challenge is next. Back now with the climate challenge. On Maui, the struggle to rebuild is underway after that deadly wildfire disaster. But now many are wondering if they should. Here's Steve Patterson.
Instead of cookouts and conversations, the sounds of Lahaina today. Hazmat crews plucking out propane tanks and paint cans. Painful pieces of past lives for families who called Lahaina home.
You know, our whole way of life is just gone. That was it.
Pamela Reeder, her husband Keenan, and their 2 girls lost their home of 13 years. She'd like to rebuild in the community she loves, but restarting seems so far away, and so much here, including the air itself, has changed.
When we moved into Lahaina, we didn't even have air conditioning, and then all of a sudden it's noticeably hotter. Fire was never any part of what we thought about here, and now it's definitely something.
Pamela's fears are grounded in science. Researchers say the Hawaiian Islands have been consumed by a 20-year drought.
How many of these weather stations are there in the state?
About 40 of them up right now.
Hydrologist Chris Schuler says dry grasses spike fire risk.
These grasses respond really fast when it rains. So if we have a wet winter, they'll grow up. And if we have a dry summer, then they'll die and turn into a really large fuel load.
Here on what's considered the wet part of Maui, the lush greenery, the massive waterfalls, fueled in part because of up to 300 inches of rainfall that this part of the island sees every year. But here on the dry side, dramatically different, with some areas getting as little as 11 inches of rain.
That trend is expected to increase. Climate research from the University of Hawaii shows the wettest areas seeing as much as 75 inches of additional rain by the end of this century, as the dry areas get even drier, with more places expecting rainfall levels equal to Arizona's deserts.
We're looking at a year of really dry conditions.
Across the island, community discussions are already swirling over the best way to rebuild.
We need to move forward in building back in those ways that keep our lands healthy and that keep our communities safe without relying on volunteerism and tiny nonprofits to try to retrofit poorly designed communities that were built too fast.
With the promise of a worsening climate and an ever-present fire threat, Pamela says that won't be simple.
I wish none of us went through this, but everyone needs to figure out what can we do so this never happens again? Because not just fire, but other parts of climate change is happening to us here.
A dream to build back Lahaina strong for the future. Steve Patterson, NBC News, Maui.
Coming up, children of war. A Ukrainian mother struggled to bring back her kidnapped son. Next.
They're Ukrainian.
Finally, a special project we want to tell you about. Our Molly Hunter reporting on potentially hundreds of thousands of Ukrainian children kidnapped amid the war and illegally deported to Russia. In our new documentary, Saving Nikita, one mother struggles to bring her son home from a boarding school deep in Russian-occupied territory.
On the school's social media account, there are videos of kids dressed up, singing patriotic Russian songs. There are also photos of Nikita and Artem in a classroom. In one of those photos, boys in military uniforms, Artem with a Z on his sleeve, a popular Russian symbol of support for the invasion.
Do you recognize anyone there? They're Ukrainian kids.
Yes, це українські діти, да?
Нет. Были когда-то украинские. These kids aren't Ukrainian anymore?
Ну, а чого ти кажеш, що вже не є українські?
То що їх захватили.
Saving Nikita, the fight to return Ukraine's children, is an NBC News digital documentary available now on NBCnews.com. That's Nightly News for this Friday, everyone. Thank you for watching. I'm Lester Holt. Please take care of yourself and each other. Good night. Thanks for watching. Stay updated about breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or follow us on social media.